Welcome to the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. My name is Riley Foreman. I am a second-year MBA student, which means you can hire me. Today's panel, I am pleased to welcome Michael Rubin, CEO of Fanatics, Gary Vaynerchuk, Chairman of VaynerX, and our moderator, Jessica Gelman, CEO of Craft Analytics Group. Today's panel is called Disrupting, Reimagining, and Crushing It, a conversation with Michael Rubin and Gary Vee. This panel will run for 45 minutes. Please tweet any questions you have using the hashtag disruptors, and we will have Jessica ask some of those at the end. And with that, I'll kick it over to Jess.
I could not be more excited for this panel. So, as normal, I did a lot of research, although Michael, I know you very well. I'm gonna start with Gary Vee, just the things I've been listening to his books on Audible, and
he has very little content out there, right?
Not a lot of content, hard to find. Serial entrepreneur, tech investor, social media extravaganza. He predicted the influencer economy and then has driven it. He's the author of 5 bestsellers, which I've been listening to, most recently 12.5, which is just fantastic. He turned the book publishing industry upside down when he connected the launch of it with NFTs. Gary Vee's are just killing it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm gonna start with a quote from SBJ, just so we have a little bit of perspective. Few people over the past 14 months, this was in January of this year, have done more to rethink the traditional ways of doing business and aggressively changing the status quo than Michael Rubin. Seemingly not just making money for Fanatics, but also the partners and of course, the leagues. You were named as the most influential person in sports this year by SBJ. You're a regular on CNBC. You've grown Fanatics, scratch it out, 18 billion to 27 billion, announced yesterday, leaked yesterday, and you're focused on evolving the leading e-commerce company to the leading sports digital company. So let's get started. You guys are so impactful. I love it. I want to talk about how you two got started. Got started with your Candy Digital and that concept. So during the pandemic, you co-founded and collaborated on the All-In Challenge, which raised over $60 million for charity by auctioning off experiences with celebrities. How did working together on All-In lead to Candy Digital?
Okay, so from my perspective, Gary is always someone who's like 17 steps ahead, and this could be the first time I'm really giving him public credit for it, but the whole trading card idea that Fanatics has built a pretty big business around came from Gary hitting me over the head about 17,000 times saying, you need to be in trading cards, it's the next big asset class, this is gonna be gigantic. And when we did the All-In Challenge together, Gary was talking to me about kind of, where the NFT market could head. So Gary's a guy who I always value, that I have in my kind of orbit of seeing trends first, recognizing big opportunities. And I knew Gary pretty well going into the All-In Challenge, but the 24/7 mentality that he brought toward doing whatever it took to raise as much money for people with food insecurity was amazing, and it just made me love him even that much more, and we turned obviously doing something good for the world into creating a new business together.
I think one of the unique things about Michael is there's very few people who have the combo of sizzle and steak. When you have charisma or energy or creativity, a lot of times the operational execution part doesn't come along with that, and vice versa. And there are unique individuals that come along that can really combine the two. And the same thing for me. I had an incredible point of view on who Michael was, but really having somebody actually keep up with me 24 hours a day felt so unique. And I was like, okay, this guy's on a different plane altogether. And we were navigating our own businesses and our own family situations in COVID. And listen, co-founding is being incredibly kind. Michael called me and already had it baked and said, hey, do you want to help me with this? And I just remember that phone call because it was very early in the process and things were still very scary. And I was like, the humanity to try to help others while navigating the things he had to do really, really struck me and definitely changed our relationship.
I love that, and I love your comment about the sizzle with the operations, because Michael, you have a long-standing relationship with MLB, and so as you were conceiving of Candy Digital, which was announced in June 21, how do you think first how that relationship with MLB is changing the way we think of baseball?
Well, first, I think relationships are everything, and in business you need to have both great strategy and great relationships to make that strategy happen. So, we work with today close to 1,000 sports properties globally, and baseball is an incredible partnership. And I think, what we saw was an amazing, I think what Gary saw and what Gary helped me see, quite honestly, was an amazing, long-term opportunity, but also one that would go through a lot of changes. And so when we spoke to baseball, the conversation was really about how do we build this the right way for the fan long term. And I think, the NFT market really started really around the crypto community, and what, Gary helped me understand, and I think what we understood early was it was not only about the crypto community, but it's really about how do we get billions of sports fans to engage with NFTs and, really engage with incredible content that all the sports properties possess long term. And so baseball really wanted to build it the right way. And what was terrific about the way we started the business, they said, look, we want to do this with you. Make sure you take care of our fan. Make sure you build this the right way long term. They were actually less worried about money, knowing that they built this the right way, the dollars would follow. And the most important thing for them was building it for the fan long term.
And so, Gary, with all of your expertise, how did you help accelerate what Michael was thinking about and what Fanatics was thinking about with Candy Digital? Any specific examples?
Yeah, I mean, look, for everybody in the crowd, we're in this moment right now. 98% of NFT projects that are in the market right now are going to go to zero or close to it. Like, we're in a very unique time. This is very similar to internet public stocks in 1999, where the internet was right, but we all got ahead of ourselves and we put $40 billion valuations on companies that hadn't even sold anything on the internet yet. And it crashed in March and April of 2000. That's what's happening in the NFT world right now. There's so much money being thrown around, so much greed, so much short-term behavior that almost every project that we see out there, even if it's already done $10, $20 million in sales, is incredibly vulnerable because the IP creator, the founders of these projects are genuinely not building it with the long tail in mind. And so, whether it was the way we thought about Sweet Futures, which is one of the things we do in Candy, which was, with NIL changing the landscape, right, of college sports, we were able to really put together opportunities that for the fan that was buying the NFT, I think one thing that is completely being missed right now is in 20 years, people are gonna care what the rookie NFT is. When's the first time this person showed up on the blockchain? No different than when's the first time that somebody showed up on a piece of cardboard, or the first time they showed up in a comic book. And so a lot of what we've done at Candy is give a lot of strategies to how do we put people that we think will be long-term superstars on the blockchain first, and how do we structure the rarities? What is the supply and demand? I mean, the reality is it's the only thing that I'm paying attention to when I work with the team at Candy, which is this strategically set up to be a long-term win that creates secondary behaviors and value for the original buyers? Yep. And I think that it's all classic collectible supply and demand strategies of that nature. And so literally every launch.
I want to go back to what he just said, because I think Gary's 100% right. To make a prediction, and Gary's often, if you look at his predictions years later, they're often very accurate. To say 98% of the NFT projects are going to go to zero, it's, I've been saying something very similar, which is there's going to be a giant crash in this market coming. And I actually love that Gary's talking about, because you also need to look at just like the law of like logic. And today you have so much new content coming every day. And to me, that's why, Candy, what we've thought about is how do we build this the right way, long term, the right way, and how do we make sure that we build great content for sports fans and great products that are going to increase in value for sports fans. And if you don't, I actually think we're actually hurting the different sports properties we work with. We're hurting fans. And so, but what Gary said, I think is going to be true. So, today when you look out at the market, so many people think this is just easy money. It's just going to go up. And I think you're going to find a lot of people, it's just going to be like the internet crash that Gary talked about in 1999 or the financial crash that we went through in 2008. It's coming in the NFT market. There's no way with the amount of new content that's coming on that this can go straight up. It's impossible.
And I'm sorry to jump in, but I think the big thing for this crowd is understanding that that's when it gets interesting.
Okay.
Right? Because again, if you look, I think what's gonna happen is it's gonna crash and the media is gonna have a field day. Told you, told you, told you, told you. You can read unlimited articles in the summer of 2000 saying, we told you the internet was a fad, we told you. The reality is the consumer blockchain is the single biggest technology shift since the internet itself. It is that profound. Every ticket to every sporting event in a decade is going to be an NFT. The technology is too obvious, but the macro is unbelievable. The micro executions right now are cliche gold rush.
And what we've generally seen at Fanatics, by the way, is on the way up, you build a lot of things organically. On the way down, you find ways to add M&A into kind of an accelerated build. And look, we went through this even, in COVID, we did so many things to, accelerate our business because there were so many companies that weren't prepared to kind of live through COVID. And I think in every crash, there's so many opportunities for, good, strong companies to have the right long-term vision. The most important thing is you get the strategy right. If you get the strategy right, then you can think more thoughtfully about the timing. And right now, there are a lot of things that don't make sense, but they don't make sense. You can be strategically right with your business plan, but that doesn't mean you act until, things kind of come your way.
So 2 great points there. Let's talk about that strategy. And I think I want to highlight, Gary, what you did with VeeFriends, and which has been massively successful. For those of you who don't know, right now there was one that was auctioned for as high as 1.2 million, and the lowest current value of one is 30K. So what did you do to bring branding and generate over $91 million in the first 90 days? And then I do want to come back to blockchain, but I want to start with some of those strategies.
Well, the thing that is most fascinating to me about the blockchain, and a lot of my friends reached out to me when I went so hard, and they're like, man, I've watched you for 15 years leave so much money on the table to preserve your reputation. Why are you ruining it now? Basically is what they were saying. You're doing something so high risk. And I said to them, you don't understand the blockchain. It's actually the reverse. If you are the creator of a project, an NFT project, you're actually more in control than anything that has ever happened before. Let me explain. With VeeFriends, first, I used the utility of the smart contract to create a 3-year promise contract of a conference called VeeCon that I'm doing at US Bank Stadium in Minnesota in May, which, it's a profound lineup of the who's who. Michael's even coming, and I don't think he's ever been to Minnesota. And so it
is cold there.
I am aware.
At least you did
it's
in
May.
The spring. Thank you.
And so first, I think people are not using the utility aspect of NFTs enough right now. Right now, we're in the art and collectible phase, no different than the internet in '94. We were in the information age, right? The internet's awesome for information. The internet was awesome for information. It was also going to do so many more things in our society. The blockchain right now is on art and collectibles, but it's a contract. Right. And so I did a 3-year conference. I did a lot of access tokens, where Zooms, like information, things that people actually value besides the collectible. But the part that I was referring to earlier, and this is why I wanted to be in business, candy's really the only other major thing I'm really involved in, is that I knew how Michael thought about the consumer. Let me just paint a picture for everybody who's hesitant to do an NFT project because they actually are good people and they fear that the value goes down. With Candy, with VeeFriends, if God forbid the market crashes, and it's one thing for all the people that spent $2,000 for it last May and are selling it for 30, 40, 70, 100,000. They did great. But what about the guy or girl who bought it today for 40,000 and the market goes to 8,000? Right. For me, because it's on the blockchain, I can provide more value for that person. You're the central bank. You're the country. You're in control. So I've been telling a lot of my friends who I think have not the best behavior in mind who are gonna be like, well, they made it, they bought it, they took a risk. I'm like, it works a little bit different. You're in control of that economy and your reputation is completely tied in. So I think for the people that have good intent and have resources and are smart, for me, I take a lot of USD off the table with my project and put it in one place just for the rainy day so I can deploy that capital back to the people that own VeeFriends, and I think the best projects will do that.
And just for the audience, you use the word utility.
Yes.
And that means that there's something of value that you're creating that is going with the NFT, so access or...
The sporting ticket is the ticket, but the utility is getting into the venue, but exactly. God willing, somebody drops 100 points that night and ties Will Chamberlain, that becomes an instant asset.
Right. And even when you take that to Candy, and Gary has had huge influence to the products that are created at Candy. I sat in a meeting with Gary a few months ago, and in 2 seconds, Gary comes up with an idea. Okay, we're going to do a new collection of rookie products, and in these rookie products, we're going to have FaceTimes available with all of the one-on-ones, or and look, in sports, you have the ability to create, and really, I think in many places you have the ability to create great experiential value, and that's what Gary's talking about. And I think we have a great opportunity to do that as well. And I think, to Gary's point, he's always thinking about how to create something that's got real value versus there are a lot of people who just they're kind of, fast and loose and trying to make a quick buck. They're not thinking about, how does this play long term? And certainly for a company like Fanatics, that's getting to be a decent sized company. We think about, most importantly, how do we do the right thing for the sports fan long term? We want to have billions of fans look at Fanatics as a beloved company, and everything that we do needs to create a great experience for them. If it doesn't, it actually hurts our brand. And we don't do everything right, by the way. We screw things up every day, but we think about, most importantly, how do we have billions of fans that look at Fanatics as a beloved company where they get most of their digital products from us. And so, with Candy, we need to create, not only great product, but we need to figure out all the things we can do to enhance that product.
And you have to think long term. For all the people that are deeper into this space, you go into the discords where these communities live with these projects, every day everyone's like, what about the floor price? Make the floor price go up. Everyone is such a day trader right now. I see a lot of founders succumbing to the energy of their Discord. Their Discord isn't a community. Their Discord are day traders who want to make a quick dollar. And I think what I'm really proud of with VeeFriends and with Candy is, listen, we care deeply about what everybody who's holding an NFT thinks. But like a parent, we're willing to do the short-term unpopular for the long-term win.
So I'm going to switch off of NFTs, cryptos, and blockchain. I want to talk about analytics. And I'm going to start with you, Gary. I said I've been listening to your book on audio, and obviously analytics is core to what we do. But you started the book, and I thought it was amazing. I shared it with my children and my wife, but you said, facts about gratitude to help us feel. So 728 million people in the world do not have drinking water. 60% of people in the world don't have a toilet that manages human waste. And so data is big in what you do. You're helping all of us think like that. From an analytical perspective, can you share how you and your team over the last decade have used social content and constantly evolve your strategy, and maybe one specific example that will resonate for people?
It's funny, obviously being in the epicenter at this event, I have historically been a much more passionate qual data guy than quant data guy.
But you use data a lot.
I use data every second, right? And I think that, for me, even going back to launching an e-commerce wine business in 1996, I remember talk about making mistakes. I was innovating, shopping cart, abandonment, and all these things just naturally because I just wanted people to buy the wine. That went on to become the industry standard practices. I wish I built some SaaS businesses around my behavior. I could have done well, but I think
you're doing okay.
We'll hang in. I think the reality is that I look at it every day. I mean, for example. I'll give you an example of how we think about it in the last decade. One of the things that I'm very proud of is I believe that I have day traded the public's attention extremely well over the last decade. I feel that on a daily basis, my number one objective before I fill that bucket with whatever I'm passionate about is where are all of their eyes and ears every second. And that comes through analytics. For me, my North Star being everyone's attention allows me 3.5 years ago to tell everybody in my companies and every business that I'm associated with that we have to get very serious about TikTok. It's not because I'm guessing, it's because the math is very clear. I can see that people are moving, their time spent, the account growth, the comment count, and then more importantly, when I layer qualitative around the quant and see the affinity is very high, and I see that people are going all in on the interest graph, not just the social graph, and then I'm ready to kind of move. And so on a daily basis, I'm curious about the organic reach and the cost of media on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Spotify, and any other platform that will amass hundreds of millions of users on it, and then every individual execution in it. You know, doing great on Instagram has required analytical movement from the picture gets the most organic reach, to the video gets the most organic reach, to now it's a Reels that you put in feed, not just as a Reel. And so on a daily basis, it is the framework of everything.
That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to talk analytics with you, and you have been in it. You champion the 80 million customers that you have. I'm sure it's growing by the second. But what do you really know about them, Michael? And
Yeah, well, first, I think the thing that actually took us, like, I always like to look back and see what we got right and wrong. The thing that was actually a great eye-opening experience for us is we spent, kind of nearly a decade building our first business, which was really the merchandise business. We call it Fanatics Commerce. And we woke up and we realized we had a huge structural advantage to building the leading digital sports platform. And when we think about how to create all these different digital sports businesses, really our brand and our database were the most two important assets that we had. And our database, we know so much about each of our fans. We probably have today between 50 and 60 attributes on average per fan. We can really use that to really improve the experience. And now when you think about it, that we're going from our first business of merchandise, and now we're adding trading cards and NFTs and online sports betting, and over time media, the ability to really use data to really personalize the experience and make the experience for each digital sports fan so much better is a great opportunity for us. I'd say it's probably the biggest advantage we have, and there's really not, if you really think about it, there's really not another company that wakes up and goes to bed obsessed with how to improve the digital sports fan experience. And I think data is really at the core of everything that we do. And obviously, look, you can't even build a merchandise business without, look, our merchandise business this year is $4.5 billion, the original business we started in. And you can't build that without data being core to everything we do. But when you think about now how we, build this digital sports platform, again, the biggest structural advantage we have is the database and the ability to use that to, help improve the experience for each fan. So ultimately, it gives us a reduced marketing cost as well. We go out and we now acquire, a fan in the commerce business, and that fan's gonna, buy trading cards from us and buy NFTs from us and do online sports betting with us and do really each of the different businesses that we have. So it's a huge advantage and one that keeps getting better every day.
Well, I think one of the things that I have learned from watching you is the vertical integration that you do. And so you've gone down, which you've done on the commerce side, and now you're going broad across, right? And taking that, which is, obviously amazing. And the 50 to 60 attributes is going to grow because you have these other businesses. So it's really brilliant. So obviously yesterday it was announced 27 billion valuation, and you raised 1.5. What are the 1.5 billion, just so we're clear? What are some of the key things that you're thinking about in using that investment for?
Yeah, for us, first of all, we don't really, we're thinking about how to build, a company that's beloved by billions of sports fans globally, and ultimately, I think, valuation just follows the business results. I think, for us, one of the things that's very unique about us is I've been screaming the way Gary screams about things, and I think people eventually, listen. I've been screaming for years that you need growth with profits. And so as a company, we've been one that's been focused on, growing quickly, doing great things for the sports fan, but also making money the entire way. And so for us, all the money we raise is really it's really to be used from a M&A perspective to go out and buy pieces to kind of build our digital sports platform more quickly. So, this year alone, we acquired Topps, the trading card company, which is, kind of the most well-known brand in trading cards, to really enable our trading card strategy and pull it forward 4 years. We just acquired Mitchell Ness a few weeks ago. And so we like when we have a strategy, if we can buy pieces to kind of move more quickly. And so that's what we use all of the capital that we raised for. And we're going to look, as a company this year, we were, profitable last year, generated real free cash flow. We'll do it again this year in a greater extent. But all of that money gets invested either in how do we enhance the fan experience globally, or how do we, kind of buy capabilities to do the same thing.
I love it. All right, we're going to switch a little bit to personal brand. You guys both have pretty big personal brands. Gary, you're the master of it. So how do you assess Michael's personal brand?
That's definitely pretty screwed up, for sure.
Where is
Gary's responsible for everything I've ever done wrong, for sure.
Where is he strong, and where can he improve?
I think Michael's greatest strength is his self-deprecation. I think if you look at his content,
there's a lot to make fun of me about.
When he shares like videos of him playing basketball, that just sets the world on fire.
Well, Gary, you should tell him the big idea you just pitched me on just about 15 minutes ago.
I told Michael, so I'm a big believer that nostalgia is incredibly underpriced. And so for a long time, especially with the emergence of betting, I've long thought that there was an opportunity for an OTT to come out called the Prop Network, where you would establish these environments. I said to Michael backstage, I said, imagine how many people would tune into a pay-per-view of Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird, and there was betting dynamics on top of it.
Well, that's not what you started with. You said
I know, I'm about to get there.
And we need to be honest here.
And I said, but the big one that I want to see is you and DJ Khaled one-on-one. I think we can do 5 million pay-per-view. And so I think what Michael, to be such a titan of business, for him to not take himself serious, to show the brighter side of him. He's a massive inspiration for a lot of fathers out there with daughters, with his content. This is stuff that people don't talk about, they don't see. What I do for a living is basically read messages back to data. I'm basically a human anthropologist and do qual data all day long, constantly. Even on the flight here, very early morning, I'm reading direct messages and comments on stuff. So I think what he does extremely well, we obviously see him with the Crafts and the Meek Mills and all that stuff that is so aspirational. But I think if you look carefully, between the self-deprecating nature of like, hey, yeah, I'm good at these things, but I'm not as great at these things, and just being an incredible dad. You see a big movement of dads tapping into their, being dads of girls, and there's a really great movement on that. I think he's doing a phenomenal job on that. What he's doing poorly is a lot of things. 26 minutes, okay. A couple things. I think, a lot of our friendship comes of the building blocks over the last decade. Saj knows, like, every time I would come across Michael anywhere, I'm like, Michael, you got to start making content. He hesitated on it in the same way that many people here have not bought their first NFT yet. That's just a massive mistake. Whether you think it's a fad or not, to disregard an entire movement is a mistake. Like, you've got to taste it. Even if you lose $1,000, it's worth it. That's the education. You've got to taste things when they're innovating. And so I think broadening some of the platforms that he puts out his content, because he's gotten comfortable with Instagram, but we need him to really expand his horizons.
Gary, who do you think would win in the one-on-one between Khaled and I?
I think Khaled.
I agree.
I think he would body you up. He would use his, he would just get you down. He still might miss a 3-footer. You guys are both atrocious.
When I leave here, I'm gonna call him and get the challenge on. It's gonna be for a private competition, but I'm gonna do it. I feel inspired.
Our next all-in challenge should be those things where all the proceeds go to a nonprofit, because I think people would really enjoy that. And I really, you look at the big three, you look at some of these celebrity boxing matches, I think there's a lot of evolution still to be done in sports. Mm-hmm. And I think we're kind of like having a laugh here, but I think there's a lot of opportunity in, people love competition.
Yeah.
People love competition, and people fall in love with names. And a lot of times when these athletes retire, or these people in pop culture, Meek Mill making that shot the other day, right? Yeah, that's stuff that people are fairly interested in.
We should be honest. I actually took the video hoping he was going to miss the rim.
I know.
and that he actually went in was actually really impressive.
You were devastated.
He was really lucky I posted that. I was really only going to post a bad outcome, not a good outcome, but somehow the basketball gods were with him.
I mean, I love the banter so much, and I mean, that's pretty good advice. I enjoy your content. I think I'm personally like the dancing the most, but you have some good coaching before that competition. So if you guys are thinking about the influence that you could have and potentially, raising more funds as your brand is amazing, obviously, and you understand how to do it. Great advice. What do you think, Michael, as your brand continues to rise in your awareness, what are the areas that you're most passionate about in terms of continuing to influence?
Yeah, so the first thing, I just want to go back for a second because I think this is kind of a good, just everyone thinks differently. Gary, consistently, I love to have people around me that I learn and grow from. It's like the big thing I always say, like I think people know this about my story, but I barely met at high school. I didn't go to college. So all of my learning goes from getting, a diverse group of friends that, you can learn from, and we all learn from each other. Sitting in the front rows, Robert Kraft, who, I consider to be my younger and less responsible brother. And, I learn from Robert every day, and Gary, I learn from you. But Gary's always been, ahead of me on a lot of things. He talked to me about trading cards years before we got into the business. He talked to me about NFTs before we got into the business. For years, he harassed me to go on social media, like literally harassed me. I mean, there wasn't a meeting where he didn't scream at me about why I'm an idiot and I should need to be on social media. It took me probably 4 or 5 years later than what he told me to do. But the interesting thing is, one thing I believe, I actually really don't think, and people could say this is bullshit, but I'm just giving it to you straight because that's my personality. I don't think about building my brand. I just do what's comfortable and what feels right to me. And to me, that's the test I need to put things through. So there are a lot of things that people may say, hey, you should do this, but it just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel authentic. And the things that I post are things that I want to promote, what we're doing with the Reform Alliance criminal justice organization we're building, or I want to, promote something that Daryl Morey's doing with the Sixers, or that, we're doing with the basketball team, or I want to promote something we're doing at Fanatics, or I want to make fun of myself, because actually I do like making fun of myself, and it's very easy to do in those moments every day to do that with her. I want to make fun of my daughter and just have fun with her. So like I really put, the things I show are things that really feel authentic to me, and I don't like to ever push the envelope, and I sometimes think for me, less is more. I also know, I look at a guy like Gary, and one of the things, I love so much about him is he's so motivational to everybody, and his energy is, he pulls everyone with him, and that's a great thing. And, I think, we have a lot of similar traits, but we're also very different. I motivate people in a different way, and he motivates people in a different way. But I think, what's so incredible about what Gary's doing is he's got, tens of millions of, people that look at him and, who learn, grow, and really, most importantly, are motivated. And he's, showing tens of millions of people how they can do more, do better. And I think that's a great impact to have. For me, when I think about, the question you really asked, which I'm not getting to, which is, what's the influence we want to have going forward? Look, I wake up and go to bed obsessed with how do I build, one of the most incredible companies in the world. I think, it took me a decade to kind of figure it out. It's kind of cool when you say, look, we focused on building this, pretty respectable merchandise business over the first 10 years, but then we realized we had a much bigger opportunity, that there literally are billions of sports fans that we can become their beloved brand where they do everything digitally with us. And so for me, I am 100% locked into doing that, and anything I do, really, I want to support that initiative and that, kind of drive and that opportunity, and, everything else around it is just things that maybe I'm passionate about personally.
I mean, you both are very inspiring. I mean, I've mentioned 12 and a half multiple times. It really is, it's a great listen or read, but I've been listening to it. So thank you.
Does he read it himself in the book?
Yeah.
At what speed? Is it like a 3-minute listen? Because he does the whole book in 3 minutes?
What I like about it is that he'll say, okay, I'm going to go off script because I wrote this 3 months ago. I mean, it's great.
This goes back to day trading attention, right? Like, things change every day.
Yeah.
And so I love doing the audiobook because I do get to do the remix.
Yeah, it's great. So we're going to switch to gambling now. Michael, you mentioned during the Super Bowl that you believe you can be the #1 player in the space within 10 years, and you're currently not in that business. So that's a bold statement. What do you think are your competitive advantages over, say, DraftKings and FanDuel or Caesars or that way?
Yeah. So first off, I actually, as I get older, and that's happening very quickly, I'm trying to be, you try to want to be bold internally and maybe a little less bold externally. although you want things to rally people around. So for me, what I've always had is a really big vision, and then you can like will things to happen. And if there's like the number one thing about my personality is people always tell me this can't be done, this won't happen, and I think that's like complete bullshit. Like I think come up with a really big dream, come up with a really big aspiration, put a stake in the ground and just like figure out how you're gonna do it. And that has worked for me time after time after time. And by the way, I'm not doing it on intellect. I'm not doing it on
looks.
Definitely not doing it on looks. I'm definitely not doing it on physical physique. I'm doing it on just like drive. And so, you know, to me, when you look at, you know, Fanatics and building this digital sports platform, you look and say today we've built, you know, a nice and fast-growing business in our original, you know, model, you know, Fanatics Commerce, and we've now just come and, you know, we're now kind of building the trading card business pretty aggressively, and now the NFT business. And you look and say, does online sports betting fit into the digital sports platform of Fanatics? I think 100% of people look at that and say, yes, this is like a perfect strategic fit. Then you got to look and kind of assess the market. And you know, right now the market's, you know, it's a huge long-term opportunity, but the market's not making as much sense, you know, in the near term. And I've been saying that pretty nonstop for the last year. So from my perspective, I think it's a perfect fit in our platform long-term. I think we've got huge structural advantages because we probably have the most digitally oriented, you know, sports commerce brand, and we have this massive database which gives us great structural advantages. And then we have, you know, we have the, you know, financial wherewithal to, you know, kind of go after things in an aggressive basis. So, I actually didn't mean for that statement to come out publicly. I said it to somebody kind of in passing, but I do believe we will be the number one player in the business in a decade, and I believe we'll do it through smart and aggressive organic growth and the structural advantages that we have at Fanatics. And then, you know, M&A will, you know, as we've done in each of our businesses, we've generally had an aggressive organic plan, and then we've layered mergers and acquisitions on top of it to find businesses that fit well. And we'll do the same thing here. And so this isn't a business, by the way, today, I got to tell you something. I mean, the amount of money that's being invested or lost, if you just put it in simple English, today is like, you know, it's, you know, there's money being lit on fire if we keep it real. And by the way, we said that a year ago. I went to our board a year ago and said, look, this is going to be a massive space long term. And I said, in the near term, you know, I'm not quite understanding the economics of this business. You know, I generally try to make money on the things that we do. It's a crazy concept. But, you know, when I look at companies, I like them to have a path to profitability and like them to make money. And I think, and look, there are some great operators in this business. Jason Robbins, who runs DraftKings, I love him. I don't like him. He's a really good friend of mine. He's a great entrepreneur. And, you know, maybe he's got, you know, just even more courage than I do because, you know, he's investing like, you know, crazy amounts of money. But I think, look, he will be a big winner long term. FanDuel is a great company. The offline casinos are good companies. I just think this is a perfect fit into our platform. And so, you know, I think we'll be very successful long term at it.
Well, I mean, at least from what I've heard, the cost of acquisition for gambling is obviously very, very high, and you have acquired a lot of them.
We acquire a customer for $19 in the commerce business, and you know, average cost to acquire a customer in you know, online sports betting today is $500 on a good day.
Right.
So, you know, I much rather look at all this, the different places I can acquire customers and then cross-sell them into online sports betting, and then go out and spend $500 plus, you know, and have a multi-year payback that, you know, in a highly promotional environment.
Well, and so we're talking about this, and you brought up DraftKings, so thanks for the very good segue, because you actually, Gary, do quite a bit with DraftKings, a prop betting show. So would love your perspectives.
Do you recommend everyone to bet on the Jets in the show every week?
Not this season, but with 4 picks in the top 38 and with top 5 free agent money and with a remarkable draft class last year.
It was a yes or no question.
The answer is I'm more optimistic.
I just want to know how much money you've cost
year.
people on the Jets in the past 5 or 10 years.
Especially
having to be in Boston with Robert here. Let's just get this out in the open. I mean, have you literally cost your tens of millions of people who really depend on you? Have you cost them hundreds of millions of dollars in the Jets?
I have not, because if you watch props and drops, I've actually decided to bet against the Jets the majority of this year. Because when it comes to business, I'm unemotional. As a fan, I'm very emotional. So I think I've made people money.
Just had to get that out there.
All right, so you're giving him a hard time on the Jets. Okay, we get it.
You know what's happening with that, though. You have to understand why it's so remarkable to be a Jets fan. Because
you learned to lose?
No, because I think, you know, it's very similar to the framework that you just said. For someone not to think that they're going to be the biggest player in the business that they're going after in a decade means they've lost before they've started. Like, why wouldn't you? it's one thing for the fans in the crowd to think something. What do you think? I think one of the great things about having real ambition, like the amount of Super Bowls I'm gonna win when I buy the Jets are gonna come directly from jokes like this on stage. These are chips on shoulders. Chips on fucking shoulders matter.
Gary, I just want to say, get one thing out there. I will bet on you for everything other than winning Super Bowls over the Crafts and the Patriots. Sorry, buddy.
I am going to win Super Bowls when I buy the Jets, and I'm going to play this clip, and I'm going to end it with, fuck you, Michael Rubin.
Perfect. Well, we should have a good wager that goes before one of us is not on this planet. We'll see.
Listen, modern technology, like I've got 60 more years of damage.
That's fair.
All right, well, let's get back to DraftKings. So why did you want to get involved?
There's a bet on DraftKings right now. Will Gary win multiple Super Bowls?
That's a
while he's
great
on this
idea.
planet?
All right.
That's how you should launch your platform.
Perfect. Will you promote it for me?
100%.
Okay, great.
Okay, why did you get, I'm going to just.
DraftKings hired so my agency, VaynerMedia, back to like the way we both think and probably why we have a friendship is, when I started VaynerMedia 13 years ago, I was coming from the wine retail business. And I looked at Madison Avenue and I said, my God, these guys and girls have this all wrong. They are completely obsessed with potential reach and just delusion of where the internet is about to take us. And so I saw an opportunity to create a business. And over the last 13 years, we've built the largest independent agency in the world. And that is just facts. And so DraftKings rightly decided to hire VaynerMedia for marketing, and then to Michael's point, that crew, those founders, they're just good guys. Like Jason really knows his stuff, and Kalish and I really hit it off because he loves to collect stuff, and we started talking through the business about collecting cards and things of that nature, and then he got very excited about the NFT space, and we just decided to do a podcast.
Okay, so then, based on everything in your experiences in growing properties, what is your advice to Jason or Amy Howe at FanDuel on how to think about Fanatics coming into this space?
They should be concerned because the reality is anytime you have I have the most confidence that I'm going to build the best XYZ always, but to be delirious and not understand the competitive landscape is also a dangerous strategy. And so I believe that what Michael is doing is the preview to what many great operators are going to do over the next 20 years, because the way technology is today, it makes all the sense in the world to go vertical and horizontal if you are capable.
See, and one thing I throw in there is I actually think it's a really big space, so there actually is room for lots of great companies like DraftKings and FanDuel. That's not me just being politically correct. I really feel that way. And Jason and I talk about it all the time. Like this is a really big space. What we're looking forward to is leveraging the structural advantages that we have at Fanatics to kind of build, kind of a more integrated and, kind of best experience for the fan long term, and truly global.
You don't have to be as remarkable as Jason to hear we're acquiring customers at $12 over here and we're going to bring them over here. I mean, I don't, some things are just uncomfortably obvious, but this isn't about the strategy. It's why Michael, I put out every strategy I have in the world publicly for free the second I come up with it. The reason I do that is because most people can't execute it.
Right.
So, by the way, and that takes courage, and it's funny. We come from the same mold from that perspective. I often say what I'm going to do, and I'm not worried about it because I think we're uniquely positioned to do it. And by the way, sometimes that's wrong, and you put your foot in your mouth and you say, God, I wish I would have kept my mouth shut.
Absolutely.
But, 99% of the time, I'm willing to tell people, here's exactly what we're going to do, and here's our script. And, we feel based on the unique, position of Fanatics, we can do this better for the sports fan. And so other people don't have that, kind of inherent advantages that we have.
Well, really insightful. Thank you very much. I think we were talking about the Jets for a second. No, it's a lifelong dream of yours.
Yes.
So, you were kind enough to give Michael some advice on his brand. Michael, you have owned the Sixers for 11 years now. What are the key lessons? Because I think it's going to happen. This guy is a force of nature. What are the key lessons that you learned that you want to pass on to Gary if he actually goes on to own the Jets?
Well, first, I'm one of several owners in the group led by Josh Harris and David Blitzer, a great partnership. And we have been at it now for 11 years. I'd say the biggest thing that I think a lot of really smart new owners get wrong is they try to be overly involved versus picking the right people to lead the team. We're fortunate enough to, this conference is started by you and Darryl, and we're fortunate enough to have Darryl leading our basketball organization. And I think, that's why we're a much better basketball team this year. And, I think to me, what I've always taken the same philosophy that I had in business and applied it to sports, which is get the best freaking people on the planet and then get out of the way. Okay, and only be involved in the biggest decision. And Darryl will say, he'll call me, he'll tell me about something about some player I've never heard of or something. I'm like, Darryl, I don't care. Why are you telling me this? Because I only care about the big things. What do I care about? I care about having Darryl leading basketball. I care about having Doc as our coach. I care about having Tad Brown as our CEO. And I care about having, ownership stay out of the way other than on the biggest and most strategic decisions. I think that's how you win. And that's actually not what a lot of new owners do. And I see a lot of new owners, they're super smart, like Gary said, they get in there, they want to be in the draft room and they want to be, dictating everything that happens, and what they do? They generally screw it up. So, I'd say if you're actually fortunate enough one day to, own the Jets, I'd say the biggest thing you want to do is pick the best people, be supportive of them, and not, try to do their jobs for them, because it never works. And the history of people trying to do the jobs of the people that, they should be getting the best people to do it, it never works out.
My strategy is when I buy the team, I'm gonna
be honest. Be honest right now.
I'm gonna be the GM, the head coach, and the starting wide receiver.
Perfect.
No, I honestly think.
Would you listen?
Yeah, by the way, I'm actually more comfortable in that zone as well. Obviously, when you're as passionate, I haven't missed a play of a New York Jets game live, no DVR bullshit, since 1982.
Wow.
So this is like foundational for me. I was born in the former Soviet Union. I would argue that Jets football was my kind of like American moment. Yeah. It's a very big part of my life. So the discipline required to do exactly what Michael's saying, which is 100% the right blueprint. I promised my brother AJ, who's 11 years younger than me and is gonna absolutely be on this journey with me, I said, listen, I'm gonna do all that, everything he just said. But I said, but the one thing I'm gonna need is, I'm still gonna need to be able to pick the 7th round pick. I'm keeping that.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will tell you is sports needs owners like Gary, because that's the next generation. And for me, I'm actually going to a different place in my life. People ask me all the time. I'm 100% focused on Fanatics. I will not be, for me, my only involvement is the Sixers. I will not be doing anything incremental for probably the next several decades, if it ever again in my life.
Wow.
I'm 100% locked into making Fanatics, the most incredible digital sports platform in the world, and I don't want any distractions from that. But I actually think sports does need great owners, and I think, if every league could have, incredible owners, across the board, it's going to make it better for the fan. It's going to make it better for the players. There's going to be more money involved. There's going to be better product on the field, on the court, on the ice. So, I love that Gary wants to, own a football team or own the Jets in this case. And, I think that, the sports leagues can't have enough great owners.
Well, so I think what you're saying is the Jets need an owner.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I think Gary would be a good owner of a sports team.
All right. Well, one of the.
Get me in trouble like that.
I know. I was just kidding.
It was a good try, though.
Thanks. One of the things that I admire about both of you is that you have started so many different businesses and in so many different verticals. And so I'd love to get a little bit of perspective of what is the difference between being a serial entrepreneur versus a one-hit wonder?
Talent. Like, that's just real life. Like, I think, first of all, being a one-hit wonder is something that should be cheered more often. I've had interactions with a lot of people who've only had one big business win or only had one hit record. Like, that's hard. That's hard. I'm on a board of a company yesterday and we were talking about a situation and the outcome might not be as great, but the outcome is a 0.0001% success. So I think talent is one. I also think it's DNA. I think Michael gave you a really interesting insight to why things work for him as an entrepreneur around his content. He said, I can only do things that feel comfortable. I have so many friends who've accomplished so much more financially in business world who always tell me that I do too many things, that I'm doing too many things.
You are.
And I say to them, that's great if your KPI is to maximize your financial output. My KPI is to maximize my happiness.
Yeah.
So, but I'll debate that for a second. Tell you, I'm more happy, locked in, and focused
That's exactly right.
Right now,
That's
and
exactly
focused
right.
on making Fanatics the most incredible company I can.
That's exactly right, and I think that's amazing. For me, I need the creativity of doing some other things alongside with my cores. I need the side dish. I need the amuse-bouche. I need that. That makes me happier. And so I think for everybody out here, it's a game of self-awareness. I think a lot of people only have one hit because they try to run the same blueprint they did the first time, but the world changes.
So I need you doing multiple things too, because you make me smarter. So the good thing is you go out there and figure it out, and then you just help me, and that's what dumb guys like me actually need help with. So it's perfect. I'll tell you, it's also about what people want. I was with somebody over the holiday break who started a company. 3 or 4 years later, they sold it for $20 billion. They had less than 100 employees, and they said to me, "I don't want to do this again. I'm thrilled with what I'm doing." So, for me, I'm going to work my ass off every day until I die because I have fun. That's what I'm passionate about. I wake up, I go to bed, I'm excited, I love the action. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have it. I would literally I would be looking at my phone waiting for action. Now, now I wake up and go to bed exhausted every day because I have too much action. So, it's all about how you're wired. I mean,
100%.
There are people, some people, money is a main objective. I don't even care about money. I care about
winning,
competing, winning,
100%.
having fun, learning. And by the way, if you do care about money, it will always follow if you care about those things. If your main objective is I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to compete,
Innovate.
Yeah, you want to innovate, all of that together. The money does always follow, but I don't care about it at all. I just care about maximizing every minute of every day.
Well, pretty like-minded and very successful folks. That's great advice. I'm going to take questions from the audience. We have had a lot of great discussion, so I think we're only going to have time for one. So you guys have both alluded to the impact of the blockchain on sports. And so I think that's a positive. I would like to hear one area. We've talked about ticketing, so put that one aside, where you think it could be used. But also, what is the biggest threat right now to the sports industry?
Biggest overall threat or biggest threat from blockchain?
Go with the overall threat first.
Overall.
I'm curious what you think.
Yeah.
Look, I think every industry changes radically, and I think sports is the greatest entertainment in the world, but we got to keep making it more relevant, and we got to keep keeping it fresh and innovative, and so for me, I think it's continue to innovate, and if you don't, you die. And I think look, things that were relevant become less relevant. You can't take anything for granted. So I'd say the second you become complacent in sports, I think you're dead. And so what I'd say is you got to keep pushing it on getting better, changing, evolving, better satisfying the fan. I mean, I look every day. I don't look at what we do right. I look at what we're doing wrong. What can we do better? So you got to take that same mentality toward.
I think there's something interesting there, though, because I think the way I would answer the question is similar to macro, micro. We talked earlier about blockchain versus NFT projects. There's nothing threatening sports. And here's why. If you look at the history of man and woman, it is like music and other aspects, it's going to be there forever. The threats sit in the micro. Super Bowl I did not sell out. The 82 NBA finals were on tape delay in America. Esports is real. Pickleball is taking market share from tennis. So the macro of sports is forever. The people that are vulnerable are the people that just think their sport. Boxing and horse racing and baseball dominated 1945, and that's 2 seconds ago. And so what you see is complacency when you're the league or the sport that's dominating the day, which is why innovation comes along. MMA versus boxing in 1978 in America, which is again 5 minutes ago, is not even a conversation. The first one didn't even exist. So I think what you look at, to Michael's point, is there are a lot of leagues at the top across the paradigm of sports globally, call them the top 25, that are incredibly vulnerable because they are absolutely in a framework of selfish behavior, not selfless to the fan, innovation, and coming up with the times. And I think that's the more exciting thing to watch play out over the next 20 years. The leagues that lose market share and the leagues and personalities and sports that emerge out of nowhere.
Amazing points across the board. So I'm so sad that we're at the end of this time because I really would want to talk with you for much longer. But I want to bring it all back together at the end. A couple of the learnings from today. The NFTs are going to crash. You have to create value, extra value, for when it goes down for your fans. So a huge focus on relationships, the fan. authenticity, being human.
Taking advantage of the contract on the utility.
Taking advantage of the contract of the utility. Blending quantitative and qualitative. Having patience. It's going to take 10 years or so to figure it out. Most people can't execute. And lastly, have fun and learn. So thank you both so much for kicking off Sloan. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.